A packed arena of 10,000 people in the Philippines was not watching a final. It was watching a fourth-round match. Andy Roddick called it a movement on his podcast. That reaction is saved for champions. Then the numbers arrived and complicated it. Eala sat 128th on tour in first serve points won. She had lost 12 straight matches against Czech opponents. Her next stop is Washington, the exact surface where her past breakthroughs have already disappeared before. The parade is over. The draw is out. What happens next decides whether Wimbledon mattered at all. Roddick did not stop at calling it a movement. He spoke on his show, Served. The former world number one talked about watch parties filling 10,000-seat arenas back home. All for one fourth-round match. He said he was fully on board with what he called Eala mania. He dismissed anyone questioning the excitement. He said this was not fake hype. It was something real. That kind of praise from a former Grand Slam champion means something. It is a signal from inside the sport, not just from fans. It carries weight precisely because Roddick has lived through this exact spotlight himself, on this exact tour, and knows the difference between manufactured buzz and something that actually holds up under scrutiny. But here is the hard truth underneath it. None of that praise decides whether Wimbledon meant anything. Only Washington can do that. If Eala fails there, on a hard court, against a field built to expose exactly what grass hid, then the last 2 weeks get filed away as a nice memory. Nothing more. To understand why this question exists, you need to know who is asking it. Tennis analysts who track her results closely have made one clear point. Eala keeps beating the players everyone already respects. Then she loses to players nobody expects her to lose to. That is not just an opinion. It shows up in the scoreline. Tournament after tournament. So the real question is not whether Eala can beat a great player on a great day. She has already proven that. The real question is whether Wimbledon changed something permanent in her game. Or did the Philippines simply watch its best player have one amazing week, made easier by a forgiving surface? Look at what actually happened in London first. Eala opened by beating Renata Zarazua in straight sets. It was calm and controlled from the first game. She then dropped a set to Maya Joint. She stormed back to win the last 2 sets without losing a single game. That showed composure, not panic. Then came the third round, the moment that changed everything. She faced defending champion Iga Swiatek on center court. She won a marathon first set tiebreak, 9 points to 7. Then she closed out the match in straight sets. Beating a sitting Wimbledon champion is not a lucky bounce. It takes solving a complete game plan under huge pressure on the biggest court in the sport. That win pushed Eala into the fourth round. It was a first for any Filipino player in Wimbledon's long history. Her ranking jumped to a career high of number 28. For 1 week, it truly looked like a rival. So why does anyone still hesitate to call it that? Here is where the gap becomes clear. A ranking of 28 suggests a player who goes deep at the biggest events, again and again. Eala's actual Grand Slam record tells a different story. Before Wimbledon, her best ever result at a hard court major was the second round. That happened once, at the 2025 US Open. At this year's Australian Open, she lost in the first round. At the French Open, she lost in the first round 2 years in a row. Her ranking has climbed mostly on grass and mid-tier hard court events, not on deep runs through the 4 tournaments that matter most. That is not a small detail. It is the exact gap this whole story is built around. The pattern underneath the headline has not gone away. It keeps repeating at the worst moments. Analysts who cover her season point to something specific. Her wins over top 10 players have piled up. 7 of them by the middle of 2026. But her losses keep coming from a different direction. She has struggled again and again against players closer to her own age, including young rivals like Iva Jovic. These are players ranked well outside the top 10. They do not carry the same big name, but they punish inconsistency without mercy. These are not household names to casual fans, but they are the ones who quietly decide if a good season becomes a great one. Some who study her closely think her ceiling may sit closer to the 20s or 30s. That is, unless she solves this specific group of players. Call it the tour's difficult middle class. They beat you quietly instead of dramatically, week after week, without ever making headlines. Part of the answer sits directly in her serve. The numbers are not flattering. Eala ranks 128th on tour in first serve points won. That is far below where a top 30 player would normally sit. In simple terms, she starts a large share of her points already on defense. She is scrambling to survive instead of taking control from the first shot. On grass, points are short. Rhythm is harder for returners to build, so that weakness can hide there. But across a full hard court swing, returners get more time to read the ball. They get more chances to attack it. The same weakness gets exposed again and again, match after match. Coaches who study serve mechanics point to a simple fix that has proven stubborn in practice. A more consistent toss and a cleaner shoulder rotation could add real pace without adding real risk. Eala has heard this criticism directly. Before the numbers take over completely, one thing is worth knowing. Eala said it herself after the Paolini loss. She wants to walk into every match believing she can win it, not treating one great week as proof she has already arrived. That is the mindset carrying her into Washington. Now widen the view, because Wimbledon was not actually the first peak of her season. It was only the loudest one. In March, she reached the 4th round in Indian Wells. That was a career high at the time. 1 week later in Miami, on that same hard court surface, she was blown off the court 6-2, 6-love by Karolina Muchova. Both losses that ended her strongest 2026 runs came against Czech opponents. That stretched an odd head-to-head problem to 0 wins in 12 tries. Then came a cold clay season that few people back home even talk about anymore. A round of 16 exit in Linz to Jelena Ostapenko. A round of 32 loss in Stuttgart to Leylah Fernandez. An early exit in Madrid soon after. None of these were losses to unbeatable opponents. They were the kind of routine losses a true top 20 player is expected to avoid. Almost every time Eala climbed to a new height this year, something knocked her back down. Often within the very next tournament she played. That pattern does not prove she is a fraud built on one good week in London. It proves exactly what remains unresolved about her game. Eala has now shown, more clearly than ever, that she can rise to the top level of the sport. She can do it when the stakes are highest and the crowd is loudest. What she has not shown yet is whether that level survives an ordinary Tuesday against an unglamorous opponent. Week after week, with no packed stadium and no defending champion across the net to lift her focus. Wimbledon did not actually answer that question. It only raised the stakes attached to it, and it moved the deadline much closer than it was before. This is exactly what makes Washington the real test, not a quiet footnote after the fact. The Mubadala DC Open is a hard court event. It is the very first stop of the swing that leads directly into the US Open. The field there is loaded. Naomi Osaka, Elina Svitolina, Marta Kostyuk, and Jessica Pegula are all entered. So are Diana Schneider and Madison Keys. And so is Jasmine Paolini, the exact player who eliminated Eala at Wimbledon just weeks earlier. That sets up a realistic rematch. Several of those names play the same aggressive first strike style that has given Eala trouble all year. It is the same style of player who beat her at both Indian Wells and Miami. Washington's hard courts also play faster than the US Open proper, which strips away any excuse about surface speed favoring her opponents unfairly. Eala will also play doubles alongside Venus Williams in Washington. They are continuing a partnership built earlier this season on grass. That storyline raises her profile in the city no matter what happens in singles. But singles is where the honest answer to this whole story actually lives. She is not walking into Washington unaware of what is being asked of her. After the Paolini loss, Eala reflected on the week itself. She called it one of the best results of her career. She said it would naturally add to her confidence going forward. She added that she wants to walk into every match with real self-esteem, believing she is able to win, not treating one great week as final proof that she has already arrived among the elite. That is a small but telling window into what she is managing inside. An entire country's expectations sit on a 21-year-old who has never gone past the second round of a hard-court major in her career. The applause back home after Wimbledon was completely real and fully earned. So is the pressure that follows her into every match from here. Nothing about Washington has been decided yet. Nothing here should pretend otherwise. If Eala exits early against this kind of hard-hitting, aggressive field, Wimbledon quietly becomes a brilliant outlier from a forgiving surface. It becomes the kind of run fans remember fondly, but never see repeated. If instead she pushes deep into the second week, especially through a field built for the same aggressive returners who have troubled her all year, then Wimbledon stops being one great week. It starts being the moment her entire career actually turned a corner. That answer has not been written yet. It is being written right now on hard courts against exactly the kind of opponents who have made her earlier breakthroughs quietly disappear before.